Episode 2 of the Jeff and Jersey podcast was a special one because we had a great close friend, Ray Chumley, as our first guest on our new podcast, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, it's always nice to get other opinions and kind of like outside thoughts into like whatever. Obviously, we talk with each other all day, every day about it, and to get someone else's like opinion on it that we don't talk to as regularly, just going to different schools and stuff, it was pretty great.
Yeah, catching up with Ray was awesome because I grew up with him, and I know he's dedicated at least a decade, probably more of his life, to understanding the game of basketball on a deeper level than just what you see on
like
TV.
We do.
Yeah, he understands X's and O's. He understands what an off-season training regimen is like. So this episode was great. This episode, some of the audio was a little off. We're getting better at the audio stuff, and we're getting better at the technology. But this episode really was great to just show and have a great conversation about how awesome basketball is without controversial takes, without doing anything for clicks. It was more just very educational.
Normal conversation that we usually have.
Fun basketball episode. And so we wanted to thank Ray. Special shout out. He took an hour and a half of his night to really sit down with us and have a good conversation and try and help us make this thing work. Very patient. And so you guys will like this episode a lot. It was fun. Great to catch up with Ray, and remember
and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. We appreciate it. Welcome to a special episode of the Jeff and Jersey podcast.
We do post-game analysis and reactions around the NBA.
I'm your host, Jersey.
I'm Jeff.
We got a special guest today. This is our first guest on the show. Special friend Ray Chumley. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, fellas. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. You're the first guy because we know you think about basketball differently than the average fan. We know that you look at skill sets, you know what training in the off season's like. So that's what we like to specialize in. We like to specialize in lineups, things like that. And so you're a perfect guest for this show, the first one. We're going to start out west, and we wanted to make this special because it's 1 week into the NBA season. We wanted to take a look at how our contenders on our list. So we have a list of 7 or 8 contenders out west. The league's as wide open as it's ever been. We want to take a look at them, where they're at a week into the season compared to where they were a week ago. First on this list, we have the Suns. You mentioned that you watch a lot of Suns basketball this year. Devin Booker is one of your favorite players. He started off the year a little bit shaky, but where do you see them in compared to last year? As where do they finish in the West? Do you think that their ceiling is still the finals, or do you think that maybe teams got healthier, there's other teams, the Jazz maybe gained that extra level of experience to put them over the top? What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Booker, he's having a shaky start, but I have a hard time. They've got the same structure. They've got those long wings. Mikal Bridges looks great to me this year. Cam Johnson is still a stud. And then anytime a team has Chris Paul at the point guard, I have a hard time believing that they're not going to be a competitive team. I mean, you look what he did with the Thunder, was that 2 or 3 years ago with a rookie and an SGA, and look at what he's doing now. I think their ceiling, as far as their talent goes, is probably the same, but I think all these guys have been together for another year under that leadership of Chris Paul. So I still think they're a top 3 team in the West.
Yeah. So one question I actually wanted to bounce off you, like you said, it's hard to hate on a team or diminish their the expectations when they just made the finals and they brought everyone back. So they brought every piece of talent that they had back, except for maybe a Torrey Craig or something, but they kept the structure, they kept the same guys, they extended guys and all that. What is the next step to win a title? Is it just Mikal Bridges becoming the guy that makes $100 million over 4 years? Is it Ayton taking that next step? Is it what is Booker, especially Booker, since we've been talking about him, what does he need to do, to make that next leap to win a title?
Yeah, I would love to say Booker needs to do what he did. I think he had 3 30-plus point games in the finals last year. I would love to say he needs to do that, but he's still young. He's not going to, be Bradley Beal last year and get 33 a game or whatever it was, He's not going to do that, but I just need to see one more stride from him where it's a consistent 27 or 28. I put him in the same category as Tatum, who I know Jeff loves. Yeah. I think those two guys are great, but Booker has to take that step. And then the other thing is I think that Ayton has to be a defensive stud. because you're going to get what you're going to get with Bridges. He's going to play hard. He's going to hit shots. I don't necessarily think he needs to be 100 million year or 100 million in 4 years guy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he can't get there, but I don't think that's key to their success. I think it comes from Booker being, he's going to get a minimum of 25, 8 out of 10 games. And it has to be Ayton's a 10+ rebound and a couple blocks and just a force on the inside. I think that's the huge step there. And I think with Chris Paul at point guard, you're going to get that. He's going to hold those young guys accountable.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a bit of like a finals like hangover. Like, yeah, they didn't win, but like with having such a young team like that and riding off that success, they're going to be I think they're going to have a shaky start, but then like figured out like, oh, we're pretty much the same team. We're going to continue and get better because like you said, Booker making that consistency jump and then Ayton being like what he was throughout the playoffs. I don't think there's a major change that needs to happen from someone. They just have to be more consistent. I think.
Yeah. And one thing that I always look at when I'm looking at predictions for like how far is the team going to go is who are they playing? A lot of the NBA is who you play. Like we saw last year, they played the injured Clippers, injured Lakers. So I'm not taking anything away from them winning the West because that conference has ran the NBA for the last, over a decade, at least our life. And so what I look at is the Warriors the Warriors are now healthy. Once they get Clay back, that team is flowing so well with guys like Poole, Wiggins playing well. And then obviously Steph is Steph. And I look at teams like Grizzlies, the Jaw took that jump. Portland kind of retooled a little bit. They haven't looked as good as I expected, but and then teams like the Jazz are just as good, but their bench is better. Now they got a deeper bench, which is crazy because they had 2 6-man of the year finalists. But I just look at things like that, and I don't think I would predict them to win the West this year. But it's obviously all in play because they have that experience. They have dudes who play well in the playoffs. We've already seen that. Cam Johnson didn't miss a 3 for a month.
Right.
Every time he came into the game, he was knocking threes down. And so I like the Suns. Next, we're going to move to the Jazz because I think the Jazz and the Suns are kind of in that similar spot where, great defensive big man, star power at the guard spot, and then great 3-and-D guys everywhere. And I think the Jazz, so they're 4-0 now. Or is it
yes.
So they won tonight, or was it?
Yeah. Well, they were up on the Rockets
Anyway,
big, so yeah, 4-0.
Jazz are undefeated. Mitchell's been Mitchell. Couple shaky shooting nights here and there, but Mitchell is going to be an all-star. Donovan Mitchell is an exciting player. And I want to know what your thoughts are because Jeff and I know like each other's thoughts, and we've talked a lot about Gobert. But the other night, Jokic had 24 on 8 of 9 shooting on Gobert before he got hurt. What do you think about Gobert? Is he a top 5 center, or is he more just like a defensive anchor that you want to build your defense around? What are your thoughts on like Rudy Gobert and his game and his career so far?
Yeah, I think what you just said there at the last, he's a defensive anchor. The league has gone so far away from the big men, running the league, if you will. Obviously you have your Jokic and Embiids that are the stars of their teams, but Gobert you're going to get what you're going to get with Gobert. There's no surprises. He's going to play hard. He's going to block shots. He's going to contest shots. He's going to get boards. So I've asked myself the question a lot when watching them. What's the next step for the Jazz? What's the next step for Gobert? Yeah. And I don't know if there is really a next huge step for Gobert. I think he needs to be him. Maybe he can, get a little better deep post game or something like that offensively, but he just has to keep what he's doing.
I know this will be the same thing for you because for me, it's painful to watch Trey Mann guard Gobert. He's 7'3", or not Trey Mann, Terrence Mann. Got him mixed up. Terrence Mann in the playoffs was able to guard Gobert, and they went small because Gobert doesn't have a post game.
Yep.
And the dude is in his mid to late 20s probably.
Yeah.
And it's like, if he was 22, I'd be like, oh, we're going to develop a post game. If I was, around him, coaching him, that's number one. We're going to develop a post game. But when you're older and you like you said, your identity is kind of already set in this league. that I don't know offensively what the next jump is for them. I think that their bench, and like that's the next thing we're going to get to. Their bench is the deepest bench in the league, probably.
Yeah, I
other than
think
the
so.
Knicks, probably other than the Knicks have
Yeah.
7 or 8 dudes who can come off the bench and play.
Mhm.
That is the same thing with this Jazz team, and I think that is the jump. I don't think it's a superstar. They also didn't have Mike Conley in the playoffs last year.
Right.
Being healthy, and then their bench. They're never going to put a bad player on the floor in the playoffs. They're never going to have a dude out there that I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to just limp through 7 or 8 minutes with this guy, because their bench is Eric Pascal from the Warriors last year, Rudy Gay, Hassan Whiteside, Jordan Clarkson, and Joe Ingles. And I don't know if there's a better bench unit than that in the league.
I don't think there is at all. And in the playoffs, Mitchell is a monster.
Yeah.
So if he, like with Booker too, it's a consistency thing. Like staying consistent and shooting well, I think he has to be their best player, obviously. And then I think that's their next step. But people always forget about the Jazz.
Yeah.
Because
they're going to be the number 1 or 2 seed. They're going to win a lot of games. Quinn Snyder is going to be in the coach of the year race every single year. They're the most consistent. They're like, I'm not going to say they're the new age Spurs, because the Spurs had Duncan, and Popovich and stuff, but like, they're almost that new age Spurs where it's like, if they don't win 56 games this year, I will be shocked. Yeah. They're going to, health or not, say Conley gets hurt, Clarkson steps up. Say Gobert has to miss a couple games. They have Hassan Whiteside as their backup center. This team is ready to win 50 to 60 games every single year for the next 5 or 6 years. I guarantee it. They're that franchise that, and they're like, I'm not going to say they're the Pacers of the West, but they're like that team that's just always tooled to win every single night.
I think that Pacers comparison is pretty good if you go back to when Roy Hibbert was playing really well.
Yeah, yes, totally.
With Danny Granger when he was balling, and you got young Paul George and George Hill's in his prime. I think that's a good comparison. And to make a quick college football comparison, I know this is an NBA podcast, but I love college football. They remind me a lot of like a Penn State program.
Yeah.
They're always there, always in the mix.
Yeah, they're always a game or two away from making that next round or making the college football playoff or whatever. So I like that comparison. Since I already brought up Jokic, the Nuggets are next. The Nuggets aren't healthy. Jokic just got hurt the other night. It's not going to be anything serious. Probably couple weeks maybe at most.
Maybe it should be like a week.
Should be quick. He just bumped knees with Gobert, drive him to the basket. Jokic is the best center in basketball, and I'll argue that till the end. Like, Jokic is the best center in basketball. I think a lot of people would say Gobert is the best defensive center in basketball, and this dude had 24 on 8 of 9 shooting, and
absolutely worked him.
He's working him. The pure skill, the passing is generational. The up fakes, the fadeaways, he's shooting threes. Like he's been shooting threes for years, but now it feels like it just gets better every year. His skills, he looks more in shape too.
He went from a big man that can shoot threes to a 3-point threat, in my opinion.
Dude, and it's even for him. I saw one the other night where he gets the ball and he shoots from so high up that he gets it up there. Gobert leaves his feet. He drives by him, up fake, lays it in when Gobert flies by him. Like, he's so fundamentally sound. And so, like, for you, Ray, how hard is it to guard a player like that? Like, Gobert's an all-world defender, and we're seeing this dude work him. Like, when a dude is just so off 2 feet, is that harder to guard than a guy that's going to fly through the air? Or, like, what are you thinking with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I'm a huge fundamental guy. You guys know how I played in high school. I wasn't necessarily the greatest speedy athlete. So it all comes down to that, in my opinion. Like, when you have what is he, 7'1"?
Yeah,
Jokic?
7 foot, 7'1", and big.
You have him like that, and he moves like he's playing in a city league in his late 40s, but he is so fundamentally sound. He can hit the mid-range fader, the Dirk fader, but he hits it with his off foot from either side.
Yeah.
He's got the low post hook. He's so big that he can power dudes down low, and then you get him in a pick and pop when Murray gets healthy. Yeah. Oh my God. I don't know how you're going to defend a guy like that.
So that's the next thing that we're going to get to is the Nuggets are a contender in the West to win the West. And I mean, win the West and go to the NBA finals. If Murray's healthy, then that moves Composo to the bench. They have some more juice off the bench. And then Michael Porter Jr. And Jeff and I love Michael Porter Jr., but he's still inconsistent. What do you think about that?
Yeah, he needs to be like that. the efficiency that he had towards the end of the year was ridiculous. For him, he has to continue that and stay consistent and be able to be a guy to where, say, Jokic doesn't have it going or Murray doesn't have it going. They need to be able to rely on him and bail him out.
One thing I wanted to add in there is sometimes the 50-40-90 stuff is a little bit like not exaggerated. The importance of that is exaggerated because with Murray out, I want him shooting more.
Yes.
And so him shooting more might sacrifice 4 or 5% off that shooting percentage, but he's making more, he's scoring more, he's going to the basket more. Feels like he's a little too like indecisive in picking and choosing his shots for that efficiency, which efficiency is great. But if you're my number 2 scorer for the first 2 or 3 months of the season while Murray's rehabbing, I want you going at people, especially if Jokic is going to miss time now. He's got to come out shooting.
He has the physical tools to do it.
He's got to. Yeah. I don't mind 2 or 3 percentage drops on his percentages on his shooting percentages because that means he's being more aggressive. He's taking more pull-up mid-ranges instead of just open threes and things like that. So I want him to be more aggressive and show us that, the talent he was coming out of high school into college, into the draft, he would have went top 3, no doubt, if he had no injury concerns. So I just want to see more of that.
Well, my thing with him is if you're going to get a max contract deal, you got to have the confidence of a player with a max contract.
Yeah.
Because they didn't sign him as a max contract player to play defense.
No,
they signed him because he's a 6'10" wing that moves well, can shoot the ball. He can defend. He'll be a two-way player, but
he's a good rebounder too.
And I think I looked at the stats after their first game, and I think he took 7 shots.
Yeah.
With Murray out, that is impossible. That can't happen.
He needs to be a focal point, and I don't even think I don't know. I'm not in that locker room, so I can't tell what sets they're running. I don't know if it's a sets problem. I don't know if it's a personnel problem. I don't know. When you're in like you, all of us NBA fans who don't want to make super controversial takes, we know that you can't just comment on something without knowing. But like for me, what it looks like is it's a him thing, not being aggressive. Now, could Jokic pass it to him more? Could they run some more dribble handoffs for him and stuff? Probably yes. But for me, it's just he's got to be that guy for them to win 50 games this year. Like I expect them to be a 4 or 5 seed, and that's gonna in the West that requires 45 to 50 wins, maybe even more.
And
that's
with his athleticism right now, with Murray being out, I know they have Composa. That's a good pick and roll player, whatever. But to me, with the way MPJ moves and the low post skill set of Jokic, why not put those two in a pick and roll right now, or even for the rest of the year? I mean, he can come off the screen and hit mid range jumpers if they play soft. If they switch him, he can take the big off the dribble. Like
you can't contest his shot. That's why I've always been so like he doesn't take a lot of mid ranges.
He needs to.
Yeah,
I for someone his skill set, that's unguardable. Nobody's blocking that. Like you said, put him in the pick and roll. That would be dangerous because if he gets that, like adds a little pocket pass to where he feels comfortable, then it's kind of a bucket every time.
Well, and even with Jokic, he's not going to dive hard to the rim. He's not like a high athletic guy. So if you get that switch and you go from 7 foot to 6'10" on Jokic, I mean, he's already putting 24 in the first half on Gobert. So then you've got all kinds of mismatches there. You got the low post, you got the athleticism with Porter on the wing, and he's not so short that he's got to worry about, his shot getting blocked or anything. I think you have to use that on the wing.
Yeah. So next we're going to move to the Lakers. Everyone wants to talk about the Lakers for hours. If you turn the TV on to CNN, the Lakers are on. If you turn the TV on to Fox News, or any of these networks, the Lakers are on it because they have the stars. It's LA. I want to be real about the Lakers. I don't want to come up here and say the Lakers are going to win the title day one. If I had to predict life on the line, who is going to win the title, it would not be the Lakers right now. I don't think that they can stay healthy. They haven't proven to me they can stay healthy. Are the Lakers a dangerous team though? 100% yes, because if you get LeBron back the way he's shooting the jumper, if he puts it on the ground more towards the end of the year, like we see LeBron up his level up his game, up his standard for how he plays as the year goes on and such. But I kind of threw in a little joke here, and this is what I want to ask you. Westbrook finally looks like himself with a quadruple double with turnovers last night.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what do you think? What do you think about like their lineups kind of concern me? If AD's not at the 5, their lineups really concern me. What do you think about their lineups with AD at the 4, some center, LeBron, whoever, and Westbrook? What is your feeling on that?
The thing that concerns me more than anything is that we started DeAndre Jordan over Dwight Howard. And I know they're very similar players, but to me, Howard still looks more athletic and more in shape. That's not DeAndre Jordan from 2014 with the Clippers, you know. I'm not going to say he's washed. He's a great player still. But the lineups, you know, Westbrook's always going to play hard. I've always loved Westbrook, even though he might have more turnovers than points, assists, and rebounds combined. But he's gonna play hard. LeBron's LeBron. The shooting concerns me, and the players have to have the ball in their hands to be good, which I know everyone said about the Heat back in the day. I know everybody said about the Warriors, but this team concerns me a little bit more as being a Lakers fan for a long time. I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't really have a prediction on them yet. I need to see more.
It's impossible because we saw they had the Suns on the ropes last year in the first round of the Western Conference. Have them on the ropes. LeBron is still injured from throughout that year, the short offseason right before from the bubble championship. AD goes down. The whole team is it's in shambles. And so that's my one gripe with this team is they didn't really. And LeBron's old. Everyone knows he's old. He doesn't look old when he plays, but he is going to get hurt. He's probably only going to play 60. I'd say like 60 games.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Which is sad because as a Lakers fan, I count on having Anthony Davis for 35 to 45 games. He's 28. You know, that has been the concern with me since we got Anthony Davis is name one season where he put a full season together.
So I got to tell him about our game, right?
Yeah.
So fun drinking game that we play at USF when we're watching the Lakers play is every time a guy's like 2 guys around the ref within a 5-foot radius like this, it's a drink. Every time Anthony Davis hits the ground, it's a drink, you know? Like they have too much, they're kind of just hard to watch right now.
They are. It's terrible.
Complaining for fouls, getting injured. AD falls every time he gets hit. Russ gets ejected last night because he's mad that a young dude steals the ball and dunks it. It's like you can't. It's hard for me to watch them, and I couldn't imagine being a fan because right now my team is one of my. It's just so fun to watch. We come in and play hard every night. We're not complaining for fouls, you know. And so Lakers are hard to watch. They're going to get better as the season goes on, just like LeBron does every single year. Yeah. But the Lakers are such a question mark right now.
Yeah, the complaining and the getting injured every time, that is what kind of veered me back to my second team as the Suns is kind of as my number one team. It's like it's hard to watch. When I want to watch basketball, I want to watch basketball. I don't want to, watch complaining all the time. And I know people get fired up. We've all played basketball. It's an emotional game, but man, if you go in Westbrook and just whack somebody in the face and then go like put your hands in the face of the ref, it's like just play ball, man. You're a great player. Leave that stuff to the side.
The Lakers think they've never fouled someone before.
They've never fouled someone in their life.
Never.
And every missed shot is a foul.
Yes. Every guy that's like, or another guy that's like that is Draymond Green. He's never fouled someone before. He does they banned the full court run out. You know, you run the other end of the court because of him. And so next we're going to talk about the Warriors. They're off to a 4-0 start. They look how I expected them to look. I thought Steph would resume. They missed the playoffs, so they had the full, like a real offseason. Missed the playoffs. Steph looked as good as he's ever looked last year with the ball in his hands. He had to create more. It wasn't as much off ball like when they were winning 70 games and stuff. When he gets help from Poole, Wiggins, and when Clay gets back on the perimeter, Draymond's going to be Draymond, that 10-5-6, 10-7-7, 8-7-7, that, but elite defense. He was a defensive player of the year candidate last year. When Steph gets help, this team is a contender and they're dangerous. And so what do you think, Ray? Is Steph playing his best basketball of his career right now, or would you take that 2016 Steph over this one, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think if you put 2016 Steph on this team, he's not going to have the same numbers. But I think if you put this Steph on the 2016 team, he might have an MJ year of 37 a game.
Yeah.
Just because he doesn't have to do, I mean, Steph's still great off the ball, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But Steph is unbelievable right now with the ball in his hands. That, you know, it's hard to say what's the next step for Steph because he's been so great for so long.
Yeah.
But last year in these 4 games, it looks like he somehow found another step. It's like LeBron, how does he keep getting better? You know, it's impressive. And I think you got a guy like that, you're always a contender.
Oh yeah, and especially with like now that they made some roster moves that were good, like picking up Otto Porter Jr.
Well, they have so much wing depth when Toscano Anderson comes in.
Yeah.
He's a hustle player. You know, they have so many guys
Bielitsa's looked good.
fit the mold so
Yeah.
perfectly.
And like it's funny just because of how like lackluster their centers have been over the years and everything. And it's like Looney's still solid, but like it's just crazy that they have that like wing depth and stuff, and they're just always so good. Like having Iguodala back has been great too.
One thing I've always admired about great organizations like the Bulls back in the day, Spurs, Warriors, you know, all that is it feels like they're not, and this is the one problem I have with the Lakers actually right now is you bring in the right piece, not the best piece. You know what I'm saying? You get that comparison is like the Warriors for years. Was Sean Livingston the best backup point guard in the NBA? No, but he was the right one. He came into games, he fit Steph and Clay and whoever was on the floor so perfectly, and he was unselfish. They had Quinn Cook playing for a while. Like they have the right guys. Is Quinn Cook even on a roster right now? Like,
I don't think so.
So it's like they win with the right guys, and I think their chemistry, they're like the perfect like poster child of chemistry over talent, I believe, because
that's Andrew Bogut and Anderson Varejao.
What do you think? Chemistry, I just think the Lakers right now took we're going to go and get all the talent in the world and try and pile it together, which it could work. You never know. I mean, it might work, but I just feel like watching, like, let's compare the 2020 Lakers where they won the titles, and now it felt like their chemistry on the court was so good with Caruso and Kuzma and guys like that who played together for years. I just feel like that the Warriors always have that chemistry side of their roster construction just so down perfectly.
Yep.
That it's so fun to watch.
Yeah, that what you're saying about it's not about the best piece, it's about the right piece. That's exactly how I feel about the MVP award. Yeah. It's not who the best player in the league is, it's who was most valuable to their team. Yeah. You know, when you could give it to Kevin Durant or LeBron every year. Yeah. You know, they might be the best player, but you're going to tell me that the Bucks are the same without Giannis? Like
or Nuggets with Jokic last year. That was historic. Like, you gotta, the MVP for me has turned into more, so it's gotta be somewhere in the middle. It's gotta be best talent and winning. And it's gotta be somewhere in the middle because winning, it would have went to Gobert last year, the most impactful player on winning his team or whatever. Yeah. It would have went to a player like that. But when you put them all in the middle, it feels like they get it right almost every year. Like, was Houston winning that many games without Harden the year he won? No. Was OKC going to the playoffs without Russ averaging triple-double? No. And so, like, it really does. It is the most valuable. Now, is LeBron the most valuable player every year? Yes. But to that specific team, it might not be. And it might be, like, every year is different where Jokic and Giannis have won theirs. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the MVP award, I haven't really had a gripe with it other than the fact that, like, when you look back, LeBron could have 7 or 8 right now, and it'd be, like, game changing, but so could all of those guys back in the day. Magic Johnson could have had 7 or 8. Michael would have had, if Michael played a real NBA career and didn't have the 2 retirements and then came back for the Wizards and like weird things, he would have won. And then obviously they gave it to David Robinson the 1 year, and then Charles Barkley, I think, won it 1 year, and Karl Malone. The MVP award has been the same for all of time, people. It's not changed. It's going to be to the guy who impacts the team the most in winning. And there is voter fatigue at all times. And so I haven't had any gripe with like the MVP.
Yeah. Well, and nobody would complain if Kevin Durant had 6 MVPs either. I mean, you can always throw it out top 3 player in the league, you know.
Okay, so next we're gonna go to one of Jeff and I's favorite players in the game right now, and that's Ja. And that's the Grizzlies. They're 2-2 to start the year. He's breaking out, and it is happening. He's going to be an all-star this year. He's going to reach superstar status if they make the playoffs. He performs big in every single big game possible.
Yep.
What do you think is, I want to ask you because I already know mine. What is Ja's best skill to you? What is his, the skill to you? Like when I watch LeBron, yes, he scored that many points. His best skill is his passing. He whips passes all over the court. His IQ and vision, all that goes into passing. I think that's his best skill. What is Ja's best skill?
There's a lot of things that can go off what I'm about to say, but I think it has to be his slashing ability. He can get in the paint. It doesn't matter who's guarding him. He can get in the paint. And then he's got the floater. He can pull back and hit shots, but he makes some unbelievable passes sometimes. He's got the one-handed, crazy acrobatic wraparound pass. Or he can just jump stop and make a, give him a shot fake and then bounce it low to Jaren Jackson for a dunk. But his slashing, the ability to constantly get deep in the paint,
defense is up. Yeah,
you can't put a price tag on that. I mean, there's just not many guys that can consistently do that. That ability reminds me a lot of Westbrook 4 years ago. Obviously, he's not averaging a triple double, but just the ability to get in there is unbelievable.
No, and I've been making that Westbrook comparison. So Jeff, what is Ja's best skill?
Facilitation, I think, like
playmaking,
getting in there, getting into the paint, and then being able to make those plays, and attracting so much, and for good reason. I mean, if he gets into the paint one-on-one, it's most likely going to end up in a bucket, and then to be able to kick it out to dudes, and then he's got better shooting now. So if it's like the defense just collapses, it's a kick out corner three for Desmond Bane or something like that, which is probably going in.
Yeah, and he's played great. He had a huge game against the Lakers in that late, that close game. The Warriors last year in play-in, he outdueled Steph almost. He's just such an electric player. And I want to add one more thing to this conversation about Ja because he is the hottest young star right now, I think, and he is the one that, for me, is the easiest to talk about because he is such a great dude. He's a great teammate. They're a fun young team. What skill or what part of his game, and I'm going to start it off, takes Ja to a bona fide superstar, to be a dude that is going to average 25, 10, and 6, a whole year, be an MVP talks. What is that skill? And I think it's playing off 2 feet. I think the minute that Ja watches these D Rose highlights and see how he's extended his career, I love when Ja flies through the air and makes a highlight play. I love his passing. I love the alley-oops. I love all that. But the second, and he has started to learn it, and that's what's scary to me is that he is starting to play off 2 feet and shoot more of those floaters. He's starting to. You don't have to go try and kill someone every. You're not going to be 22 forever. You can't go and try and kill someone in the rim every single play. And so I think that playing off 2 feet is really going to help his game elevate and help it. Even like we watched Jimmy Butler play. When Jimmy Butler was young, he wasn't always shooting those leaners, and DeRozan wasn't always shooting that. But that's what's made their career so long. And I think Ja, when he starts to learn how to play off 2 feet at all times, I think that's his breakout.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. One play that sticks out to me when you say that is when he hit that step back 3 against the Clippers when he dropped the dude. I think it wasn't Clippers, wasn't it?
I think so.
He was.
Clippers.
Yeah, he could have taken 3 more dribbles and tried to murder someone like he did against Kevin Love.
Yeah.
But instead, he committed hard, took that one dribble to stop himself, and then got on balance with a shot and sunk it. And when you get that with his athleticism at this young, slowly as that athleticism goes away, that first step gets a little bit slower. He's going to have that in his bag, and he's still going to score.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously playing off 2 feet, and then if he's consistently knocking down the jumper the way he has so far, then
dude's got to fly up on him and stuff. That's like the difference between him and Westbrook so far in their young careers. Westbrook is always like a average to below average shooter. He was never a great shooter.
Ja's shooting like 40%.
Ja's shooting, 35 and above % from 3, and dudes are flying at him. That first switch, if dudes fly at him, he's gonna get in the paint, and then he's gonna have the baseline, both corners. He's gonna be able to go up and finish. And so the jumper and then playing off 2 feet, I think, are the 2 main ways for his offensive game to shoot right through the roof.
Yep.
Okay, next team we're gonna talk about in the West is Portland. So Portland started 2-2. Dame's been shaky. CJ's been great. They added Cody Zeller and they added Larry Nance Jr. Do you think, is a coach. They also changed coaches to Chauncey Billups. Ray, do you think that coaches make that much of a difference in the NBA, or do they need a full-scale roster rehaul if they want to win with Dame, or what is your thoughts on the Blazers right now?
I think the Blazers need a Mikal Bridges.
Yeah,
is what I think they need.
Yeah.
I think obviously I've heard a lot of talks about what if they had a Paul George instead of a CJ that can play a little better defense.
Yeah.
I just think that that's what they lack the most. Dame's going to be great. CJ plays well in the playoffs. That's always going to be that, but I think they're missing that wing defender.
Yeah, the Blazers for me, their defense has been league low in bottom 5 or whatever for years now, and they have Robert Covington, and I just think that they can't guard anybody on the perimeter, and that's a big part of the NBA. Team defense is the number one, and I don't know if it's CJ and Dame not buying into it and going 100% all the time. I don't know what's wrong with Portland, and I want to give them a larger sample size. Obviously, we're going off 4 or 5 games right now in this video, and so this is just our first look at them. I don't think they're much different than they have been in the past, just off 4 games. But I need a 40 game sample size to really. If I'm their GM, I'm looking at the first 40 games, maybe to the All-Star break, and I'm looking, and it's like, we're 5 to 10 games under 500 right now, and this is just not looking good.
Yeah, and defense too. Like, you're starting Norman Powell, who's 6'4", small forward. Like, that's just an automatic mismatch, and then you can't switch Covington onto them because then a power forward will just post him up.
Yeah,
and so it's just weird.
They need that 6'8" wing.
Yeah. Last Western Conference team that I want to talk about is the Clippers, and the Clippers are interesting because they played well in the playoffs last year without Kawhi. They don't have Kawhi all year this year. He's not sitting out. He's taking the year off because of the injury to rehab and come back from that ACL tear. Paul George has to play at MVP level. And just like he did in the playoffs, he played great in the playoffs. They had tons of shooters around him. But even him playing at an MVP level, they need the Morrises. They need Kennard to pitch in 15 points a night, or 12 to 15 a night.
Yep.
And so, I'm going to ask Jeff this first, is who do you think is the key guy to be the number 2 option for the Clippers? They need a dude who's going to average 18. Who is that guy?
It might have to be Bledsoe. To have that secondary creator.
Yeah.
Because Morris, he'll create every once in a while, but then a lot of it's spot up. Same with Kennard, but Bledsoe can actually handle the ball.
Yeah.
If he can run a pick and roll with Zubac and get some buckets off of that, I think it has to be him. Because that takes weight off PG. Because if PG is just going down hill, whatever, getting into the paint, and he's kicking out all the time, that's going to wear him down. He just needs someone to take the weight off of him.
Yeah. And the reason I bring this up is because they just lost to the Cavs the other night, and the Cavs are an interesting team right now, and that's for another day to talk about that. But they put up 79 points, and you're never going to win a game in the NBA in 2022, 2021 season putting up 79 points. It's just not going to happen. And so when we bring up these guys like Morris too, Morris was scoring a lot on the Knicks before he was traded there. And so I don't know the fix in LA other than just play better and knock down threes. They're a big 3-point shooting team. And so, I don't know. Their team dynamics kind of weird and off right now without that wing. And plus, they just got Batum back. Ibaka is still out.
Yes.
And so, Ray, could you see Paul George being in the MVP talks this year? Or do you think it's kind of past his prime? Not past his prime, because he still looks like Paul George, but do you think that it's possible for them to make the playoffs with this roster? And you have to make the playoffs to win an MVP. And so that's kind of the deeper question: is do you think this team is good enough to really make the playoffs and make a run?
I don't see it happening necessarily. I think PG is probably he's a top 10 player in the league, in my opinion. But I think there's too much weight on his shoulders. They have great pieces around him if they had Kawhi.
Yeah.
If they had Kawhi, Eric Bledsoe is going to be able to do a lot more. Luke Kennard is going to be able to do a lot more. Zubac is not going to have as much attention on the roll.
Batum had a good year too, and a guy I didn't even mention is Reggie Jackson. He had a great playoff run. He looked great last year. So I like their roster. It's just they're missing,
they're missing Kawhi. I think that's what it boils down to. I don't think PG can play for him and then play part of Kawhi's role as well. And then you can't ask two other guys to step up as that Kawhi. It's just not possible in my opinion. I just think Kawhi is too good.
So for my last Western Conference, this is going to leave us off with the West and what, 1 week in, who's winning the Western Conference? I picked the Warriors. If I had to choose right now, I think the Warriors are going to win the West. I think that they're just so far ahead of everyone, and health isn't really a concern for me with the Warriors. Steph doesn't get hurt. Like, Steph will play, he sat out the 1 year with a broken hand or whatever.
That's just because they were bad.
Yeah, I think Steph will play pretty much the whole season. I picked the Warriors. What do you think, Ray?
I think the Warriors are hard to bet against on 4 games that we've seen so far with the talent. And, you have Clay coming back. But I still think, obviously, I'm a bit of a biased predictor here with the Suns, but I still think the Suns with that same core and CP3 at the point guard, I still think that you can never count them out. But as of right now, I think you're correct with the Warriors prediction.
Yeah, and my thing about the Suns is it's such a bummer because I can't predict the Suns at this point in time because Chris Paul's injury is just worrying me too much, and he does too much for that team. He gets hurt every year in the playoffs. Now if he stays healthy, obviously, if you told me right now Chris Paul will not get hurt, I would maybe pick the Suns because their chemistry looks just like the Warriors. They're a step ahead. It's just Booker's got to play better and things. What do you think, Jeff?
I want to say the Warriors. I'll go with that, but I think the team that will surprise people and maybe give the West a run for its money is Utah.
Yeah.
I think just having that, if Mitchell takes another step,
yes,
then because he averages like 27 a game in the playoffs, and
he's not afraid of the moment, not afraid of taking shots. Mitchell is that guy.
I think I have them in the Western Conference Finals against the Warriors, but that Warriors matchup is not great for Gobert because they can space everything out and
all be spaced out. He's gonna have to stand and guard the corner. And for them, it'll be weird.
But I say the Warriors, but I think Utah will give them a run for their money. And obviously Phoenix if they stay healthy, and the Lakers if they figure it out. But I'd say the Warriors.
Okay, so now we're gonna move to the East. We'll go a little quicker in the East because I know Ray's got other, life going on and stuff. So the East, first team I bring up is the Bucks, the defending champs, just like we brought up the Suns. They're off to a 3-2 start. Giannis has kind of been so far. Middleton looks like Middleton. He's getting that 22 to 26 a night type of thing, and mid-range is just money still. My first question for you about the Bucks, Ray, is so they lose PJ Tucker, right? And then they insert Grayson Allen into the starting lineup, and that changes everything defensively. Like we saw in the first game of the year when they were playing the Nets, Middleton now has to guard Kevin Durant. What to you is that something to like worry about? Is that maybe a move they make at the deadline to try and get another wing defender? Do you like Middleton starting on Kevin Durant in games and guarding him? Is it a Giannis Middleton have to switch it off? I don't like that personally, and I've already voiced those concerns on the previous one, but I want to get your thoughts on their lineups and defense.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't like Kevin Durant on anyone. I mean, he's that good, but I also do not like. When you compare it to PJ Tucker, I don't like Middleton compared to that. I think for them, it needs to be, I love Bridges. He's young, but like a Jay Crowder type guy.
Yeah.
That just does not care. Even what did PJ Tucker say in an interview,
He got 50 dropped on him. He's just like, I'm just out there. I'm gonna work as hard as I can to stop him. Yep. Kevin Durant,
it's Kevin Durant. What do you expect?
Yeah.
It's Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
I promise we tried.
Yeah. So it's like, my thing with Kevin Durant is you're not ever gonna shut him down. He's gonna get 25 to 30 every single night. But I just don't like that Middleton's going to have to try to stop him, because he was their guy on pick and roll in the playoffs, getting buckets in the clutch. And so I don't know. I don't like their defensive lineup.
That takes so much away as far as how Middleton can compete on offense too. I mean, if you're going to ask him to put that much effort in on defense, it's gonna take a hit on his offensive game.
So next I'm gonna move on to Philly.
Yeah.
Philly, I can talk about Philly because they just played the Knicks on Tuesday night and lost by 13. Embiid looks out of shape to me. When Embiid doesn't play well, he's the engine. Ben Simmons is not the engine that keeps this team rolling. It's Embiid. Embiid is the guy who, when he shows up and is dominating games,
They usually win.
Start to play well, they win. Their defense looks more fluent and better. He was slow, out of shape, out of it against that Knicks team. And so I don't think it's really a debate at this point in time that him or Jokic, but I know Embiid's probably number 2. What do you think? Is Philly losing a lot with Ben Simmons not there? That's another guard. It pushes Maxey to the bench, maybe, more minutes getting spread out. What do you think with the whole Simmons situation? Not necessarily what do you think if it's garbage or not, but like what does Simmons bring to them in a positive way, not just the non-shooting?
I mean, obviously he's a great defender. He's I think that's better than, well, I don't want to say better than his passing because his passing is unbelievable, but his defense just brings a whole nother aspect. You've got a 6'10" guy that brings up the ball and then checks the best player on the other end because he's not getting asked to put up 27. They're asking him for 18, 10, and 9,
Yeah.
But I think as far as the chemistry goes, not to get off topic of, actual basketball, but I think
for sure. Chemistry talk here.
That the off-season stuff with Simmons isn't hurting them, not because he's on the court, but because all they heard all off-season long was what's happening with Ben Simmons. They didn't hear how has Embiid gotten better? Who is going to be the best role player? They heard, is Ben Simmons going to play? And that takes a toll on a team.
Yeah. And I think just adding on, and I'm going to let Jeff go, with Simmons not being there, I think it hurts Tobias Harris more than it hurts Embiid.
Yeah.
Personally, I think Embiid's going to be Embiid. He has his off games. He has the games where he looks like 2000 Shaq. He has games where I say he's the best player in the NBA when he is playing like this. But Tobias Harris having that other defender on the court, having other wings, ball handlers. Like I see Tobias has to bring it up now more because Seth Curry's not bringing it up, that type of thing. So I think that impacts his game more. He's had a great start to the year already. But what do you think about the whole Simmons dynamic with their lineups? Like, I would never be that guy to say that the Sixers are better without Simmons because they're not.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
It's tough because like you said with Max, you're kind of throwing him in, and I don't think he's ready for that. He hasn't shot great. And then on the defensive end, he's kind of a target.
Defense from Simmons to him is just not even.
Yeah, and then like you said, it's more of an effect on Danny Green and Tobias Harris than it is on Embiid. Embiid it doesn't really change much for him. It might affect how many more open shots he gets, but it doesn't matter because he's taking so many open jumpers.
Yeah.
But for Tobias Harris, it's kind of like a Middleton thing, just on a different scale.
Yeah. I see that. Yes, actually guard wings now.
Yeah, because then he's gassed by the end of the game, and it's like if you want to go to him for the final shot, then it's going to be tough.
He is the shot creator. Seth Curry has gotten a lot better.
He looks awesome.
Off the dribble, he's shooting like 60% from 3.
Something crazy like that.
And so they have guys. Maxey looks like he could be a star 1 minute and then look bad the next minute. A little bit like Emmanuel quickly, but I think Maxey's a little bit ahead of him right now.
Yeah.
Just in my personal opinion, he's starting on a team that I have projected to finish top 3 in the East, And so I guess for them, it's just they're going to be a team that's going to win 50 games. They have the talent, they have the depth, things like that. If they do get Simmons back, which I hope they do, and I want to watch Ben Simmons play basketball again. I love his game. I just think the willingness. I don't even think it's a willingness to shoot threes. He doesn't need to take 3-pointers. It's a willingness for the dude to stand under the rim to take an elbow jumper.
Yeah. And then the free throws, those are bad too.
So
if you have to be taken off the court in a playoff game when your defense is that good, that's a problem. That's kind of a joke. You need to fix that.
And so I'm gonna move next to the Knicks. I'll be quick. I should start my own, podcast just with me sitting here talking to a camera about the Knicks because I could just go on for hours. But
Randall has been solid some nights, off some nights. It's not a fluke. Last year wasn't a fluke. Julius Randle is a completely different player. And I wanted to first ask Ray, when you guys drafted Julius Randle, the Lakers being you guys, did you envision this like a 40-point or a 40% 3-point shooter? An all-star, like after what was your feel with Randall on the Lakers? Did like this skill set? What was your feel with that?
I loved Randall because he played so hard. Like he's going to give you everything he's got out there. My concern with him is that he's 6'9" and he can only shoot out of the post with his left hand, and he didn't move like a guard.
Yeah.
But did I see him shooting the three like this? Absolutely not. I did not think that he was going to be dribbling.
Anyone did.
I didn't think he was going to be dribbling on the wing and taking step back threes and people being like, "That's a great shot." Like I would have
like his dad or something, or you were like his cousin or something.
Yeah.
He's just a god or something. Like
yeah.
my first year, his first year on the Knicks, he was a spin into a turnover 3 times a game type of guy, jumping up in the air to pass. I think Tibbs did really like reel him in. He really made the offense about his strengths. We're going to have you take a dribble to the right and shoot that jumper. We're going to have you take open threes. And then as his confidence got so high, he's a natural point forward. We saw that in New Orleans, his passing, point center stuff off the bench there. And he started and Boogie got hurt, things like that.
Yeah.
I think Tibbs has really helped him. And I'm gonna kind of end the Knicks there because I talk so much about the Knicks and stuff, and I can get on Kemba and Fournier, and Kemba's been playing better lately. RJ's fit is a little off, and that's like a young player with a bunch of vets. He doesn't really know his fit. That's kind of where I'll leave that. But that Tibbs talk leads me to the Bulls, and that's who the Knicks played tonight. They're 4-1. They just lost to the Knicks. Their chemistry looks way ahead of schedule. And have you watched much of the Bulls, Ray? And how, Lonzo's kind of that glue guy. They have scorers around him, and they have a very unselfish big. What do you think about that team dynamic?
Yeah, I haven't watched like any games start to finish, but I've caught bits and pieces, and obviously you see the highlights anytime you get on everywhere because everyone loves the Bulls in basketball. But I think that when you bring in Lonzo and Caruso and Levine's your stud, and then you bring in Vucevic, and then DeRozan's that veteran that can still play, that's so many good pieces, and you have a good amount of leadership. Like DeRozan being on the same team as Levine, when you like look at their play styles, it's kind of like, and like look at where DeRozan's at compared to where Levine's at. But in 4 years, Levine is going, I mean, obviously he's like an all-star right now, but that's going to help him more than anything playing with him.
Yeah, see,
Lonzo's just so good all around. I mean, you're going to get
a guy. He's like a 40% 3-point shooting Draymond, is what I say.
Yes.
He's like, I can't envision a team in the NBA right now that you put Lonzo on and they don't get better. Lonzo has become that guy for me. He can shoot. He defends at a high level. He plays hard. Doesn't complain. He's a very quiet guy. Like that's what's funny about. Like that's what I think is hilarious about their dad is so loud, and all 3 of the boys are like pretty quiet. LaMelo is a little bit louder, but he's still like a pretty like on the court. He's a laid back type of player. He's not like pestering people, getting technical fouls and stuff. That's what's so funny about them. They're just cool, easygoing. And I wanted to ask you, is Caruso good enough to be a 6th man of the year right now? Or is he just one of those guards that comes in and they don't lose a beat just because of his energy and stuff? Or do you think that he's, has that ability to be that 6th man of the year candidate type of player? Or what is your
like, I think 6th man of the year candidate is a good way to put it. When you look at like his skill, like he's not going to come in and do what JR did for the Knicks or what Clarkson did last year for Utah.
Scoring production has to be there for a 6th man of the year.
But on this Bulls roster, the way he's playing, you have to have him in that conversation. So I think he's a legit candidate. Will he win it? Probably not. But he's playing that well, and I think he can carry that out just because his play style fits so well on that roster. He just comes in, he plays hard. He's going to have a few highlight dunks, even though it looks like he's 50 years old. Like he's going to do those great things, and that fits so well with that team because they're all so unselfish
and quiet. He's a very chill demeanor. Yeah, I love this Bulls team. Tonight they came back. They were down 10 with about, like I was telling you, like 4 minutes left or something. They come back, and it comes down to a DeRozan mid-range that he airballs, which is like 1 in a million. And so
Right.
they're right there to win that game against a good Knicks team. That's going to be a fun rivalry throughout the year. Next, we're going to move to the Celtics, and I know Jeff wants to talk a lot about the Celtics. Off to a shaky start.
I'm disappointed.
2-3. He's a little bit, disappointed. My notes, and I want to say like my notes, and then I want you to build on it however you want. You can take 5 minutes of this show and just do your Celtics thing. Is I thought they lacked some bench scoring. They have Schroeder. After that, it's Jabari Parker minutes. Hopefully he hits some shots here and there, that type of thing. I also have that Tatum needs to get 25 to 30 for this team to win. And then you need Brown to be more consistent. He's battling that knee injury and some weird things. But I do love their defense and lineups. So what do you take from that?
Effort is not there. Opening night, it even wasn't like Jalen had 46, but without Jalen having 46, I don't think it's close. Then we got smacked at home against the Raptors, looked terrible. Beat the Rockets, whoop-de-doo. Had a great win against Charlotte. Was encouraged.
Yeah, great.
And then
great right now.
Came out against Washington and put up a dud. And then you got, so like Horford is talking about effort should never be questioned.
Yeah.
And then Schroeder's like, at shoot around, we weren't doing well. And then the coach is saying, I told them they'd get their asses kicked if they came in and played like that, and they did for 3 quarters.
Yeah.
That's concerning because that's what last year's team did. And I don't know if it's the Jays and Marcus just not trying hard enough, but like it's concerning that these new people are coming in and then saying the same stuff that was raised as questions last year. I don't think the switching defense has been great. We've only given up 119 points or less in one game. Lineups.
Yeah, 119 or one time. Yeah, that's
to the Rockets. Pritchard and Neesmith didn't even play.
Got lots of talent down there. Too.
Yeah.
Lots of offensive talent.
But like Pritchard didn't even play. I don't know why we have an 8-man rotation, especially when Josh Richardson's out there for 15 minutes just running around. He recorded 1 rebound and 1 assist. I'm concerned. Yeah. It's hard for me to say that at first, but
it's one weekend too. There's nothing
Tatum
to stay up at night about.
Tatum is my favorite player in the whole league. But I've been like looking at Celtics social media, and it's, what is a picture you think of when you think of Tatum? I think of him with his arms up looking at the refs.
Yeah.
It's every possession. I get it. You're a superstar. You should be getting calls. You need to fix that and just run back on defense. And then Jalen's getting called out for his effort pretty much. Like coach is saying the difference is mind boggling.
Like, Ray, I want to bring you in on this because like we always had these talks when we were younger. It's like when you're in a YMCA league in Anchorage and it's like, time to play. We played 3 games in a row and oh, my ankle's sore, you play, right? So the other night, Jaylen Brown is on a minutes restriction, not a hard one where it's like the trainer's like, get him out of the game or whatever, not one of those.
Yeah.
But they say he's going to play 25 to 30 minutes when he normally plays like 35, 36, right? And in his 37th minute of the game, he just commits murder on Miles Bridges on a dunk. What, like, I don't get what that, like, if you're only good to play 25 to 30 minutes a game and you're playing in your 37th minute, you go up and just have a crazy dunk. It's like, I don't know if it's an effort thing. I don't know if it's a trainer's holding it back because he's worth so much money. Like, what are your thoughts on like injuries and players playing through them? And
yeah, I mean, from watching Jaylen Brown in high school to playing in college and then playing in his young career, how he has, I've never questioned an effort thing on him. So I think it may be more like the Kevin Durant thing. Oh, he strained his calf, boom, torn Achilles.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't looked much into that injury situation.
Yeah.
So I think,
and the league has transitioned so much lately, I think, into easing people into seasons, easing people.
Yep.
Because
it's just such a like sudden shock to their bodies.
Yeah. And plus, I think that like it's so sorry to cut you off on that thought, but like I wanted to add one more thing. It is interesting how rare it is that like a real injury like a Kawhi or like a tearing his ACL in playoffs, like a Jamal Murray tearing ACL late happens late in the year because their bodies are so well conditioned at that time. But early in the year, there's lots of big time injuries. You know what I'm saying? Gordon Hayward, that's a freak accident, but it still happens. Torn ACLs all the time. Steph hurts his hand, sits out, they were bad. Clay gets hurt in the offseason, things like that happen all the time. And so I think, do you think it's like more beneficial for teams to ease into seasons, or is there in the NBA, is there much leeway for that?
I have no clue how to feel about this topic, because it's like, if you hold dudes back for the first 40 games of the year and you win 15 games in the first 40 games, and then you just expect dudes to play 14 more minutes a game and boom, you're a different team. Like
the Lakers last year, how they were like, oh, we're just going to coast into the playoffs in the 60s. No, now we're getting scares into the play-in.
So I have no clue. I mean, obviously, I would love to say that your players need to play hard every game. They should treat every game like it's their last or whatever. But is that really realistic with an 82-game season? I don't know. So I really don't know enough to even really have a feeling about it. It's just such a tough situation. I can't blame a trainer for wanting to hold a guy back, and I can't blame a player for wanting to play hard. So it's just,
and I agree.
It's a tough situation to be in.
I agree with that take completely, because you never know. And what for a dude who someday I'd love to like interview an NBA trainer and know the process that goes into holding a guy out of a game. Like physically, you are not playing, or you're only playing 25 minutes. I don't know enough, and I will admit that. First thing is that I don't know enough about that, but it is funny to think like how levels change. Like when you're in high school, you're playing, man. No matter what happens, you are playing in the game, going from there. Next, I want to talk about the Hornets, and we'll speed this up a little bit. LaMelo looks to me like what Ja looked like last year. Taking a step, he's scoring the ball a little bit more confidence. He's still passing well. Like that, but like looks a little better than last year, and then maybe next year's his year to take that, total jump or whatever. But Bridges is the surprise. 25 points a game right now. Did he have 30 tonight?
Yeah,
another 30-point game. Miles Bridges, I think he looks like the player we expected him to look like through college and stuff, and he kind of turned into that exciting dunker. Have you watched him much lately, or have you watched him like last year with the exciting dunks? And would you expect him to like be shooting this well from three and scoring on the perimeter and things like that?
No, I've been a huge Miles Bridges guy since he was in high school, but no, I didn't think he was going to come in. I was watching them play. I don't know, maybe it was their third game. I think it was against the Celtics or something. Anyways, he's got the ball on the wing, and he does the Dame between the legs, step back to the side and drills a three. And I was like,
the jumper looks like smooth now. It looks like he had a full off season. He had a full. It's his second off season. It's his third year, so it's his second full off season. And it looks like he's finally refining his skills. And so, like, what to you, Ray? Like, I know we went through this in high school. Like, how big is that? You take 180 days and you go, in 180 days, I will have shot, 50,000 basketballs. I will have made hopefully 70% of them, or whatever you hold yourself standard to. How big for confidence and skill is that? Like where, an NBA guy is doing more than two kids in Soldotna are. I know that he's shooting more. What does that do for like that skill set and building that when you get a full off season to really sit down and like work out everything in your game?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I dealt with a lot of injuries in high school, like being young, and so sophomore going into our junior year, having a full off season when we were about to, take the reins of the varsity team, that's, obviously you get better skill wise, but your confidence and your mental state when it comes to sports is more important than anything. So when you get a full off season and you can see yourself progress, that is just, you go into the game and you're like, I know what I got. I'm going to take these shots with confidence. And I don't think that's never going to change. It doesn't matter if you're in the NBA, if you're playing in Europe, if you care enough about a city league at home, like that's all the same. And to see how he's playing, Bridges is playing, I mean, it shows. And obviously I think they're counting on LaMelo to be their guy, but if you got two 25 a game, guys, in 2 years. If LaMelo gets 25 in 2 years from now, every single game, and Bridges keeps it up, that's dangerous. And they play hard too.
They're such an exciting team to watch in the full court and everything.
Yeah.
Next, I want to move to a team that, so we're just talking about a team that is so exciting, throwing the ball up the court. Now I want to move to a team that sticks in the half court a lot. They have exciting wings and guys like that, but this team is going to win games in March and April in the half court on defense. They're going to win games beating you, scoring in half court. They have shooting, they have good bench, and this is the Heat. They're 3-1. Jimmy looks great. Hero is my leader for sixth man of the year right now. He's scoring the ball with supreme confidence. He looks like Jordan Clarkson did last year, just coming in and taking over games offensively. But a stat that I thought was crazy is they have not given up 100 points a game on defense. The defense, and that's the first thing you see when you look at this roster. What does the PJ Tucker and Kyle Lowry additions do to their defense? I'm going to ask Jeff this question first.
It makes it so much better to not have like Dragic out there getting looked at, or say like they started Hero and then Duncan Robinson was a small forward.
Yep.
And then like that's just kind of, they were still good defensively, but now it's a lockdown. It is a jail in the half court.
Even like Jimmy, we saw him when they made that run to the finals. Jimmy had to guard LeBron. Now that's PJ Tucker. Jimmy can guard the second best player, or Bam is guarding the second best player now.
Yeah.
I feel like their matchups and their switchability on defense, even
It's
Hero,
crazy.
Hero gets a bad rap as a defender, but when it's Lowry, Hero, Butler, Bam, and PJ Tucker on the court, you can switch and move and do things and double. Their defense and their lineups are going to be so great. And so, what to you, Ray, in playoff basketball, having that half court defense, how big is that? How important is that half court defense?
It's huge. It's the most important aspect in the playoffs, in my opinion. And when you look at their team, Jimmy Butler's obviously a great player, been a great player for a long time. Bam is on the come up, still getting better, but they don't have a Tatum, that's going to get you, supposed to get you 25, 30. They don't have a Durant. They don't have a Lillard. They don't have any of that, but they all care so much and play so hard. And PJ Tucker is the heart of every team, wherever he goes. I mean, I love PJ Tucker, and then being able to have Jimmy play with a little bit more energy on offense, because he's guarding number 2 or number 3. That is huge. I mean, the Lowry veteran, and he plays so hard, and he's probably going to draw 10 charges a game.
Yeah.
But having that leadership with Jimmy's effort is just, and then PJ, they did all they could do in the offseason, and I don't think they could have done better.
Okay. So last thing that we got with you, Ray, and last thing that we wanted to talk about team-wise is obviously the Brooklyn Nets. And they started 2-3. Kevin Durant looks as good as he's ever been. He looks like he could win an MVP this year. He looks unguardable.
Crazy.
Like you mentioned earlier, every matchup's a bad matchup. And I think he and Steph might be the only guys that I would really say every single matchup is a bad matchup. And no matter who is guarding them, Steph, if the 3 ball's not falling, he's not going to score 35. But no matchup, no one that you put on Steph, I feel confident that he's just going to hold him to under 25 every single night. Kevin Durant, same way, gets to his spots. I don't even want to discuss him because I think that he is the solid on his team. I want to talk about Harden off the rip. He's had a terrible start to the year. Is he losing a step? And what does this do for, that quick first step that he's always had? What does that do for a player of his skill set that's relied so much on skill versus vertical and jumping and dunking and things like that?
Yeah, that's one of those things. You see, Kobe played for 20, 21 years, and he obviously lost his first step. And it was until years 17, 18, 19 that he really took a hit as far as just his body being worn down. I think that Harden is too skilled to not be a good player. I know he's going to complain about fouls, and I know he can't do the stupid arm hook thing and get to the free throw line 15 times. But if he would quit worrying about that, and he would go into the lane, and instead of using that arm to hook somebody, put it on the ball and put his shoulder into the dude, he's built like a friggin' linebacker.
And
if he gets into that and hits a floater,
Yeah, I just hate the way that he's like acting about it, and then kind of like backtracking on what he said about his hamstring and being healthy and getting ready into the year. Kind of making excuses, and then in the interview saying stuff about like I don't like how like the refs or the NBA used me as like a poster boy, but like you made games so hard to watch. Games flow so much faster now. There's so many more free throws taken. Like and then it's all just so unnatural. Like he's hooking his arm and then like jumping the opposite way in just an unnatural shot motion.
Weird ways to try and like bump you, and it's like getting in your way as a defender. And it's like, is he defending me or am I defending him? You know,
Yeah.
weird things like that. And
He
like,
inspired Trey Young.
Yeah.
I
Trey Young is such a special skill set because he does it a little bit differently. He doesn't do as much of the arm hooking and the stuff. He does more like off body, weird, like and then the guy jump backwards. Luka does that too. And I think it really did become a skill, but it's like when they banned the dunk, Kareem invented the skyhook. You know, like James Harden, you don't have to invent the next great move, but do what you do well. You know, get to your floaters, try and develop a little bit of a mid-range game. Pass the ball. James Harden's one of the best passers in the entire NBA. He can make every pass, bounces, lobs, everything. Shoot your step back three, you'll average 25 a night. And I think that's the fix to him, is just worry less about the fouls, like what you said,
Yes.
right? And worry less about their out to get me, no, just go play basketball like you have since you were 7 years old. Just go be such a skilled, he's a big guard, he should use his body more.
Yeah, when you were shooting around in your driveway, you weren't worried about foul calls. Just play.
Right.
Just go play, dude. And so last thing I want to say about, this East talk, it was great. Who's winning the East? Just like I said with the West, and I still have the Bucks winning the East. I have a Warriors-Bucks finals after 1 week of the NBA.
Yeah, I don't know how you can say anything else other than the Bucks. Giannis is just too dominant. We know that he can perform in the playoffs. Obviously, they might lose a couple more games during the regular season just because if Middleton's guarding the best player. But I just don't see anyone guarding Giannis for 7 games. Like, and by guarding, I mean not giving up 35, 15, and 10, which is like sometimes it's like an off night for him. So I'd have to pick the Bucks.
Yeah, I'm with the Bucks too. I think the only team that can, as of right now, looking at their roster and Giannis, the only team that can really give them a hard time is the Heat, just because I think Bam can challenge Giannis pretty well, and then you're going to get PJ Tucker here and there. That's the only team that's going to give him a shot, in my opinion.
Okay, so our last segment with you, Ray, and I know we probably went way over the time. This has been great. Our last segment with you it's the first time we're bringing this on the show. It's called Unsung Heroes. And what we're going to do is we're all going to draft so we're going to draft a starting 5 from our favorite team growing up. So I'm the Knicks. I'm assuming you chose the Lakers, Ray, and then Jets with the Celtics. And the only rules are that the player couldn't start more than 50% of the games while he was on that team. And he couldn't have been an all-star while he was on that team. So we're going to choose players that we think, those bench players, the role players who you grew attached to as a fan of that team.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to choose these guys that we grew attached to. Maybe, all 3 of our teams have had weird losing seasons where, there might have been some weird guys playing a lot of minutes and things. So this will be a fun segment. And I want to start with your point guard, Ray. Just give me your point guard and then we'll move on position. We'll all go point guards and then.
The first guy I thought of, I didn't know we were doing starting 5. I thought it was just 5 players, but
anything.
Ty Lue. I didn't research it a lot, but I was pretty sure that he did not start all that many games. But I love Ty Lue. Obviously, when you say Ty Lue, you think Allen Iverson, obviously, but
genius.
Yeah, I mean, he plays hard, good defender.
Yeah. What's your point guard?
I did Shane Larkin.
Miami.
Oh, Miami. He was a stud.
2018 Celtics, I think it was. The year that Kyrie and Gordon Hayward were out, that playoff run, he would just come in to be instant spark off the bench and would take like every shot at the buzzer at the end of quarters. and stuff. Just like one of those fun guys who's overseas averaging like 40 and 15 right now.
So my point guard is Langston Galloway, and that sounds like a little bit of like a because Langston Galloway. That's no diss on him. He's had a great NBA career. He was with the Suns last year. I don't know if he is now. Is he still?
I don't think so. No.
No. He has his own shoe. Is one of the fun facts I wrote down. And as a rookie, he made an all-rookie team for the Knicks. He averaged 12, 4, and 3. And so that was the year that we won 17 games that he was a rookie. He played a lot of minutes. He started 48 out of 130 games, so it was under 50%. Now as my point guard, I just grew attached to this dude. Like I just love watching him play. Who's your second guy, Ray?
Second guy is Caruso, obviously. He's like arguably my all-time favorite bench player for the Lakers, even though it's, not that long ago that he was on the Lakers, but just fun to watch, plays hard, doesn't complain, just a guy that everybody loves. It. If you're playing the Lakers when he was on the Lakers and he comes out and gives you 50, you're going to be chanting Caruso at the end of the game. I mean, he's like, you just love him. You can't not.
He's memeable, he's the guy that's like, he's so much better than he looks. He's so much better than he looks, he's got the bald hair and he's catching alley-oops and stuff. It's crazy. Who's yours?
So what I did Marquis Daniels. So he was with like the 2012, he was like 2012 Celtics, like end of the KG Paul Pierce era, and was like just a super low key player, would come in, get like 6 and 4 or whatever. And he had these long dreads and just like a super low key guy.
That's awesome. So my number 2 is Tony Douglas. He played 30 out of 175 games as a Knick and averaged 11 points per game one year. And he was like our backup 2. And he would come in and, like a 6'3" 2 guard, shoot threes and stuff. And that was like right when I started watching the Knicks with Melo. That's when I really became like a big basketball guy. And so Tony Douglas is my 2. Who's your 3, Ray, or who's your 3?
I got to go with Luke Walton.
Love it.
Luke Walton back in the day with Shaq and all those guys. I think that's right when he started, right? Was with right at that early 2000s run. And then he was, I think towards the end of his run with the Lakers when we had Lamar Odom and guys like that. But he was a great passer, turned out to be a pretty good coach.
High IQ guy. Your team is a smart team. I like that. What's yours?
Mine's Brandon Bass.
Yeah, he didn't miss.
Never not once. Didn't see it.
No.
Just like super fun, like undersized guy that just like one of those super likable guys.
Yeah. My number 3 is Steve Novak, and
shooter.
So as much as we all know about Steve Novak, the discount double check. He had the Garden on fire when Melo was there, and he was that guy. He started one game out of 135 games in a Knicks uniform that he played. He started one time. And so I thought that was awesome. He was a 45% three-point shooter in a Knicks uniform, and that like 45% from 3 on volume. He was taking 6 or 7 a game, and that was an electric time to be a Knicks fan. Let's go your 4th and your 5th player, right? Let's speed this up.
So I got Nick Young just because of the infamous meme of him turning around, and then I didn't say Shannon Brown yet, right?
No. Your team's good. Yeah.
And then my honorable mention, I doubt anybody remembers him, but Ryan Kelly, Duke guy, power forward. He had some. He was kind of a laughable guy. He had quite a few just like, what are you doing? Like dribble into the backcourt for no reason, just funny stuff like that. So I had to throw him in there.
I got honorable mention too. What are your last 2?
So Jordan Crawford. In 25 game win season, he would come in, and the harder you made the shot, the more likely it was going in.
J.R. Smith.
Would not make an open shot. And then my last of the 5 is Jared Sullinger.
Oh yeah. Jared was so good in college too. I couldn't believe that.
Ohio State, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
then my
Baby Davis out.
No Glenn Davis for you?
No. It's like
goodness.
And then my honorable mention is Luigi Datome. like
Nobody's, man.
just a random
Boston
dude.
Celtics over here.
Random
Nobody's.
dude. We were so bad though. We won
Yeah.
25 games with like
We won
Gerald Wallace.
17
We had
that
Gerald
one year.
Wallace as our third best player.
So my last two, Ray will know what I'm talking about with this one. You might not get like inside jokes. I think it was freshman or sophomore year.
Oh,
Mindaugas Kuzminskis. Remember him on 2K, Ray? When I used to
I'll
kill
never
him on
forget
2K?
you put a 70-point triple-double on me.
Yeah, with Kuzminskis, it was just a weird thing with me. And then Kevin Seraphin is my 5. He didn't start a single game in a Knicks uniform, and so I thought that was great. He did get some playing time in PT. And I have 2 honorable mentions because I couldn't leave them off. So Alexei Shved was my first honorable mention, but I couldn't put him on my team because he started 9 of 16 games. He was just over 50%. Couldn't put him on my team. Second, and it was too obvious, so I couldn't put him in my starting lineup, was Prigioni. Pablo Prigioni. He started 50 of 187 games, and he was just one of those like super smart. He's like Compazzo for the Nuggets.
Great comparison.
He walked so that TJ McConnell could run with the stealing the inbounds pass and like the weird And so
Dude, Alexei Shved was a baller on the T-Wolves early in his career. He was good.
He only played 16 games for the Knicks, but he started half of them. So that tells you where we were. You know?
Yeah.
Played 16 games. So this was a great episode.
We're going to talk about this football game on Sunday night.
I almost forgot. Yes, we are. So Vikings, if you guys don't know, I'm a Vikings fan. They play the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. It's going to be a great game. Ray is a Cowboys fan. And so what are we going to bet on this? We're going to bet case of something, 2 cases of something.
Yeah, I don't know. You still
Mountain Dew,
yeah.
maybe?
Yeah. I like Dr. Pepper, but I'll get you a Mountain Dew.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm very excited. Obviously Trayvon Diggs, everybody's talking about him. He's got a lot of picks. He needs to take a lot of steps to be a really good corner. He's a ball hawk right now, but I'm excited to see him against Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see if Kirk has always gotten that bad rap in big games. He's having one of the best years of his career this year. He's efficient with the ball as any NFL QB is right now. He doesn't throw a lot of picks, and so I don't know if Diggs will get him. He might be. He's gotten everybody, so it'd be impossible for me to like really predict that. But I like the Vikings team this year. I think we're a great team. We're way better than our record. We lost on a last-second field goal that we missed to the Cardinals, who are one of the best teams in football. We fumbled the ball when we were about to kick a game-winning field goal against the Bengals, also one of the best teams in football. Like, this team is way better than our record. And this Sunday night game will be great. And
welcome to being a Cowboys fan. Better than your record.
yeah, better than your record. Trying to finish above 500. Now it's 500. Now it's above 500 or not, because it's 9-8, 8-9. So there is no Jeff Fisher 8-8 seasons anymore.
Yeah.
And so he should go in the Hall of Fame for that. But
Hall of
that'll
Fame
be a fun
mediocre.
game, and I'll definitely have to FaceTime you at halftime or something. And
absolutely.
But yeah, we really appreciate you coming on to the podcast.
Thank you very
We're
much.
gonna try and get this up soon. This was just awesome, man.
Anytime, fellas. It feels like we're talking sports on the back of the bus on the way to the Valley again.
Exactly.
Anytime. So.
Yeah. You're a special first guest, and enjoy your night, man.
Awesome. Appreciate it, fellas. Have a good one.